Hello everybody and welcome to episode number 1 of Master's Thesis Magic. This is a series where we whoop fools with janky wanky decks and we discuss how to do a great master's thesis that will get you a great grade. And this is true practical advice, not theory, true practical advice. On the menu for today we have a super fun Izzet deck that is basically playing the opponent's creatures, and then we have a very nice Lemire control deck, that I just did because sometimes you get tilted and in games where people are playing Gruel Adventures in normal queue, and you just need to vent it out with Lemire control. Okay, so the discussion today is what are the main decisions what is the main decision, the first decision that you need to make when thinking about what sort of master's thesis you're going to do. And in practice, I know it's a research question topic, whatever, okay? In practice, the main decision that you have to make is whether you want to do a quantitative thesis or a qualitative thesis, okay? In a quantitative thesis, quantity comes from numbers. You are using statistics to study the relationships between two variables. So, for example, does money make people happier? You measure how much money people have, you measure their happiness in a survey, for example, and then you use statistics to basically relate to those two variables to understand whether more money makes people happier or not, okay? In a qualitative thesis, you're talking to people and trying to understand people, trying to understand the process of what is going on. So you are trying to understand how people use how people use money to make their lives happier. How does that happen? We know the relationship is there. We know there's a coefficient. But what is going on? You're opening the black box. That's what qualitative research is all about. But your choice should not be based on this sort of like epistemological or ontological issues. What is the nature of knowledge and science? Your choice should be based on, first, what do you like to do? What can you do? And how much time are you willing to spend or can you spend doing research? To put it simply, quantitative research is faster than qualitative research, and I'll explain why in a sec. But before, I need to tell you that the amount of time that you're going to invest in a thesis and how important it is and how proud you feel at the end, really requires you to pay attention to what you're going to do as a method, okay? Because if you hate statistics, if you're not good at statistics, you don't need to be a genius, but you need to be good, okay? Then a quantitative thesis with numbers, measuring things will be hard. Because there are always surprises, and your advisor can help you, but there are always surprises with real world data, things that are tricky to solve, variables what happens if your variables don't correlate? This happened to me once in a thesis, not mine, one of my students. It was really hard, even for me who, I'm pretty handy with statistics, it was really, really hard to work around it, right? So on the flip side, you shouldn't just do a qualitative thesis because you don't know statistics. Because in a qualitative thesis, you need to be good also at asking questions and getting people to talk to you, okay? Good at conversation, good at hearing and listening to people and ask questions from what people tell you, not just from your guides, okay? So you need to be good in both cases. So think about what you really enjoy doing and what are you better at or less worse at, because obviously you are going to learn this skill. So what you want to learn. And this may even be useful for you in the market, right? So if you want to go for HR, you're going to spend your life interviewing people. So you might as well practice at school, right? If you're going to do it for market analysis, if you're going to screw up with statistics, it's better to screw up in school and eventually learn that you may want to do something else. I don't know. So quantitative, qualitative, how much do you like it, what you want to learn, what are you capable of learning. And then there is time. Quantitative research is quick because what you do is you build surveys from pre-existing questions, you put these surveys on LinkedIn, email them to your friends, put them on Facebook, link them on Instagram, you get the answers, you put this in a software that does statistics, and you get the results. That's it. Then you have to, work it out, but that's it. With qualitative research, you have to first interview people, transcribe the interviews, transcribe observations, and then the whole process of analyzing text, takes a long time and it's difficult. So it's a huge time effort. Now, I think the stuff that you learn with qualitative data is just amazing. And actually, qualitative data is easier to publish for your professor than quantitative data because it is easier for a master's student to collect very good qualitative data, unless you're sort of filling in the blanks for a professor's database. Okay, then quantitative data is can also be good. Okay, so if you want, if you'd feel proud of having your paper published, and if your professor or advisor is willing to do that, help you out, then yeah, definitely. And some of my students have gone to conferences, gotten papers published, so it's pretty good. I also really enjoy talking to people, listening to their stories, and I found that many of my students really find it a super enriching experience. Now, what sort of theses are there with quantitative and qualitative research? In quantitative research, most people do a survey. So they decide on a couple of variables, for example, wealth and happiness. They read papers to find how to measure these variables. Normally this has been done before. They build a survey with all of the questions used to measure these variables, hand out the survey to friends, get the result, statistics, and you're done. Okay? Some people have done theses with secondary data. This is data that are already collected. Okay? So for example, you can look at whether people in wealthier countries are happier. And there is data about how wealthy countries are. So for example, GDP data. And there are multiple indexes published by several research institutes on happiness per country. And so what you do is you just pick up these two spreadsheets and you do the statistics to analyze them. So it's easier, but you do need to find secondary data. Sometimes this is not super high quality data. It's high quality, for policy and so on, but not for research. But there are other things you can do. Two things, actually, that you can do. Very few people do this, but I just want to put the options out there. One is you can do experiments. So in an experiment, you're basically giving people a survey after they go through some sort of experience, after they've seen something or they've done something. This is normally done in a lab in front of a computer. And the good thing about this is that you get all of your surveys at once, right? So my school has a computer lab, and PhD master students could use it to do this sort of research. So you don't have to wait for your surveys, but obviously these labs have, space constraints, so you need multiple experiments to get your data, and so it's just easier to hand out surveys. Final thing that you can do is a meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is basically a summary of existing literature, but that is based on looking at the statistics reported in that literature. So you're not reading theory papers or empirical papers with data, and you analyze the coefficients. And there are specific methods to do that. It's not super easy to do. I wouldn't say this is the easiest master's thesis you can pick, but definitely the data is super easy to collect because you're just downloading papers from the library. Okay? Qualitative research. At the master's level, qualitative research is mostly about doing interviews. Okay, so you design an interview guide with questions that you're going to ask people, open questions so that people can take their time answering, and you get rich data. and then you transcribe these interviews. That's what takes time. 6 hours of transcription for 1 hour of interviews. And then you analyze this. Analyzing text also takes much more time than just doing the statistics. Some people have done focus groups where you have multiple people discussing a topic at the same time. Now, the focus groups are not super easy to do. My students, even after being warned, sometimes the focus groups become like 5 individuals in interviews at the same time, but you don't want that. In the focus group, what you want is people talking to one another. You don't want to be asking the same question to 5 people at a time, right? But what that does is, instead of having to spend 25 hours to collect 25 interviews, you spend 5 hours to collect the opinions of 25 people, okay? Because focus groups can be done in groups of 5, right? What other things can you do? Well, if you're doing an internship in a super cool company, you can do a thesis just based on observations. And I have a student that has done a really good job with a thesis like that. You can also look at documents. So a student of mine looked at studied business plans of not Bitcoin. What's the technology behind Bitcoin? Blockchain. So he looked at the business plans of these companies, and he analyzed that as data, what was stated in the business plans. Okay, and there's also a lot of people doing online research. This sometimes is called ethnography, and you just basically scrape data from an online forum and analyze that. Okay, so these are the different things that you can do. Which one should you pick? Really, the one that you think you're going to enjoy the most and that you feel more capable doing. Joao again, your host, and we have a little bit of time after discussing thesis to talk a little bit about the game. So as you can see, basically what I'm doing is I'm picking up my opponent's creatures and basically getting control of them with a Thesis passive. In this game, like I'm really hurting because I'm not finding the cards that I need to take control of the creatures at the end of the game, and my opponent has like pretty big creatures, so I'm like suffering just a little, hurting just a little bit here, and basically trying to play around, killing my opponent's creatures, so that at the end, I can steal one. I can steal the one creature that they have. So it's a pretty tense game, but you can see all of the little mechanics going on. So this magmatic channeler, like super cool, and I'm like, oh my god, I finally find the card that I needed, to sort of win the game. And this is a deck where I basically, my opponent just gives up. That's the point of the deck, is they end up not having any resources, and I have all the resources. So it's sort of like a funny take on a control deck, where instead of killing their creatures, I get their creatures, and there are 2 win conditions. You either annoy the opponent because they have no more resources, or I just basically win with their creatures. I mean, you can see I'm really developing a nice board here, and there's very little they can do. So look at this. I mean, obviously, I have a little bit of tech cards like this one, which allows me to here take their creature. Which obviously speeds up the game. I mean, I had enough to kill the creature and get back into the game, but this just makes it easier. So as you can see, the opponent will just give up and say, "This is a genius deck, Joao Anastatias. You are the boss of the jank." So anyway, thanks again, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the deck. And I'll be around next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. Okay. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great one. Again, I'll stop.